Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Really a pleasure to welcome Pastor Walter Moss. He, of course, is in charge of the community initiative to reduce violence, and at least at the time of this recording, could not be more appropriate of a person to be talking to. Good morning, Pastor Walt.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I know you've been a presence, a very calming and good and stable presence downtown as Canton has been doing protests, as protests are across the country right now with the tragic death of George Floyd. And I just would love to get your take on it, our community's response, and some positive things that may be coming from this. I know you've got some planning you're doing among pastors and elected leaders, and I'm just really, really interested in hearing your thoughts on all of it.
Well, yes, we have, matter of fact, when this is aired, we will have had a meeting with the mayor, the police chief, and the safety director with a group of pastors to talk about areas that we think can help the police in the community relations and also in their policing themselves. Mm-hmm. Measures that we think they can take that will be more, liking to the community and especially to the African American community.
It seems that training might be a big part of this, and I would also think screening, just to make sure that the person who's going to be wearing that uniform and that badge is of the character that should be wearing that uniform and that badge. I've got all respect for policemen, but not everybody should be one.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yes, and that is something that I can say that Canton and Stark County chiefs do a good job, in that. But really one of the issues has been even after they screen and some people get through, you still get some bad apples. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, with most of the cities unionized, there has been a hindrance in kind of getting rid of some of those bad apples.
When I think of, now this of course was not Canton, this was Minneapolis, but when I think of other officers standing around and watching that happen, and I think of the person holding the phone and recording it, I don't know how a person can stand there and hold a phone while that happens in front of them. And now as clearer heads prevail, we think, why didn't somebody pull him off of him? Why didn't somebody do something? And what's your take on that? Is that the craziness of the moment, or?
Yeah, I really believe, because I really believe that training should have told them this is not right. You got to stop him, or one of you got to jump in there. Yes, definitely.
Yes. Well, you said it. I want to go back to something you said. Teaching police how to police themselves. What would that look like?
Well, it's just really, they know when they're wrong, and they also know, sometimes they think it's called like a code of blue. They protect each other, and I think that sometimes, regardless, they're just going to have to break that for the things which is right, because those codes can, as we see in this case, can bring this devastation to that community.
There's always been complaints. We've heard complaints about police brutality in certain instances, but there was something about this man and this one that the world has sort of taken notice. I've read today Australia. They're beginning to do some protesting in Australia. There was something about this life that has just open everyone's eyes.
Right. And I see even in London, in England, they're doing protesting.
Right. Well, I think the more we find out about George Floyd, that he was a Salvation Army employee, that he was working with youth, that he was completely against violence. And
right.
you kind of know the kinds of things that we've got you among them, guys in this community who are doing this kind of good work. It seems like he may have been one of those kinds of guys. How can this happen? I know that's a rhetorical statement, but you must ask yourself, you must shake your head, and how could this have happened?
Yeah, and my whole heart is I guess kind of embracing for the next one, and that's kind of been my concern is when will it stop, and that whole piece.
Well, tell us about some of the meetings you're having and going forward. Pastors are working together. You're working with elected officials.
Yeah.
What's the goal? Mm-hmm.
So the goal, we have some community prayer meetings. The goal is that, number one, African American pastors feel like they're being heard, and that we're all considered at the table. Now, the meeting will consist of African American pastors and other pastors, but the African American pastors will be leading the part on reform, some of the points that we have on reform. And, I think it's a must that we all must have a seat at the table, and that they hear what we're saying also.
What would reform look like? I have to confess to you with all humility that I had no idea it was like this. And to know that this has been a reality for people for some time, when some of us thought this was resolved back in the 60s, that it's heartbreaking, it's mind-boggling, and so moving forward, what would a reformed community look like? How would we operate?
Well, I don't know. It was something we did. I did an interview on another radio station yesterday with 6 people, and the sheriff was on, the prosecutor was on, and one of the things that came up was in the midst of this reform, and is some type of a coalition you could be, and that instead of meeting quarterly, yearly, or twice a year, maybe need to meet monthly and have people on that from all aspects of the community and a police a part of that to talk about what's going on in our neighborhood. We always want to get together when something happens, but I think we need to have some conversations leading up to things. Things will happen. I mean, in my office, I work every day. There's crime committed and police are involved.
Right.
And so those people don't end up killed or filing most of the case. They don't end up filing a complaint. And so, I don't know. It just seems like it's another level. I know they have review boards, but I just think we got to take another step, and that is more of a group that comes together who represents the community. And if something happens, instead of we got to wait till it goes to the community board, we got to wait to hear about it, and we would know about it up front. But all this is to be determined. But those are just some of the things in my mind that I'm thinking. And the biggest thing we said in the radio yesterday is community has to be open communication between the police and the citizens and the politicians. So, yeah.
I love what you're saying, that don't wait for something bad to happen. The time is when there is peace to begin building those relationships.
Right.
And I'm thinking of, Lamar Sharp and, others who do such an amazing job of building relationships with young people in the community during every day, just doing life together.
Right.
And then that also builds trust.
Right.
What would you say is the relationship right now in Canton? Because I would guess it was pretty good, but now I'm seeing protesting and some of it got a little squirrely there on Friday night. But
well, usually when people protest and something happens, it's all you're going to get another opinion.
Yes,
I was out there in the midst of it, and I felt like. I just felt like the police did what they had to do because if it's get a certain hour, and I think what happened was there was a call for people to leave, and some people may not have heard it, And that's what happened, and they were the ones that got the tear gas and that because they were still congregating on it was over on 12th Street on 12th Street Northwest area ashore, and that's one of the hot spots in Canton anyway of crime.
Oh.
And so that was unfortunately, but I mean, to me, the police have to do something because you just can't let people out there in the street 24/7, and you got traffic coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Since you were there and you got to be a part of that, I know what I've read, and it seemed like it was peaceful and even very powerful. Tell me about being there. And they've gone on. There've been like 4 nights worth so far, right?
Yeah. Well, it has been peaceful, like I said, but. See, I know that embedded within those groups were also people who came from other cities, Cleveland,
really,
Akron, and they're being there. We want confrontation with the police.
So people are there trying to stir up trouble.
Right. And what I see is a lot of young people who are followers, and to me, they've been taken advantage of. There's almost 3 different groups out there. There's a youth that's innocent, and there's a group that's coming looking for confrontation. And there's some that are really, really, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to follow no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The innocent ones that I feel for, they really had no clue why they're there. I mean, they know why they're there because they want to show, because of what happened, but they don't realize that other people are trying to take advantage of your body. We want you to sit in the road and things like that, just to have numbers, too.
Mm-hmm. You spoke to the group, yes?
I did speak originally on the first night.
What were your words to them?
Well, my words was all police are not bad here in our county. I mean, they think of different locations that we have, municipalities between Alliance, Canton, Madison, and Jackson, all in between Perry, all the police jurisdictions. They're all not bad, and there always may be one, and that something happens, but we can't see one policeman and say that policeman is a bad policeman. We know, Lamar Sharp, Officer Lamar Sharp, that's the Better Me Foundation. Somebody went over and busted the window in his van.
Yes.
His van, I mean, that was unnecessary, but they know who he is.
Did they know that was his van?
They had to know.
I just can't get over that. Him, of all people.
I mean, but this is what I'm saying. There are just some people who get involved with this, and they want to take it to another level.
Yeah. Well, you're working with young people all the time. I'm not sure I let you answer. Tell me what you think as far as the relationships right now with our young people and the police force.
Well, it's got to be strengthened. And that's where your community policing come in. And unfortunately, in Canton, we used to have 5 to 6 officers who community police officers, but now we have 1. And so what happens is, especially during the summer, those officers could go to a lot of events and be with the young people. And now, that has not happened. That won't happen because this one officer can't do all those, be at all those events. And so that, to me, you lose that person, that officer who's had contact with the youth, talking to the youth, gathering with them, having them get in his car, telling them what different things is. This is rebuilding a relationship of trust.
Yes. Building a relationship of trust. That's it. We're speaking with Pastor Walter Moss from Serve. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Pastor Walter Moss from Serve. That's the community initiative to reduce violence. Wow, when you took on that position, you didn't see this coming, did you?
Oh, no.
But I can't imagine a better time to have you and your experience and the fact that you've worked with Serve for some time. You've got some street cred by now that I think comes into just really would be come in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that at the root of this, it's a spiritual problem. What's your take?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, that's the one reason why we got making sure we get pastors involved,
Mm-hmm.
and we're doing some things with pastors, definitely.
And and we were talking about important for the police to build a relationship and tough to do when it's down to a smaller force.
Right.
How about pastors? And I'm thinking some of the youth programs and after school programs that are specifically in those areas, thinking of the Martin Center and some others.
Right.
What role will these places play going forward in letting these kids know they are heard and they're valuable and their lives count for something?
Well, I really think this summer, right where we are now, right when we are coming out of this COVID-19 pandemic stuff, I think these organizations are going to be very, very important to help fill a gap that we have in our community, with especially boys, girls that don't have fathers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to get our kids into positive gatherings, recreation, sports. It's going to help keep them busy and focused on some positive things.
Yeah, you take away kids' sports, which they had taken away this spring. I mean, it really was a recipe for something bad, wasn't it?
Right.
And all of this isolation for quite some
Right.
time and a lot of pent-up emotions. It really was a little bit of a powder keg.
Right.
You mentioned how important a father is. Why is that?
Oh, wow, because the father helps to bring stability in the life of the children, a stability in the life of that home, a stability in the life of the community. And, I mean, I was one that grew up without a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my weaknesses and my flaws and my emotional pain and hurt from growing up as a kid without a dad. So I really believe that if I would have had a father in my life, some of the things that I experienced would not have happened to me.
Well, when I take a look at your life and think you must have drawn from that to become a great dad. You know, you talk about not as a son, but your life as a father and feeding all those positive things into your own children and your own family. Did you do that? Did you think, okay, I want to do this completely different than...
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know, your awesome wife, Darlene, have you, how do you work together as a couple addressing these kinds of things in your own home?
Well, we just basically communicate, and, you know, and she knows the things that I like and don't like to do or be involved in, and same with her. Some things we're both separately involved in, but, you know, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's communication, you know, it's communication.
Yeah. It does all boil down to being a good communicator, doesn't it?
Yeah,
We have to be willing to communicate.
That's right.
You know, as I think about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you're very involved with the pro-life movement.
Yes.
Do those little Black Lives matter as well? You know, when people are talking about violence against African Americans, there has not been a segment of the population affected more than the African American community when it comes to abortion. It's a travesty what's happened. I'd love your take on that.
Well, that is everything you just said. Hit it, you know, and it's unfortunate that you know, I wish I'm standing out there running amongst all these people with their Black Lives Matter signs, etc. And I said, man, I wish I could have my Black Lives Matters in the womb sign.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's the paradox that I'm in these situations, you know.
Mm-hmm. Was there any concern about, because we are going through still, it's not like coronavirus just stopped so that we could address this. It's all kind of happening at the same time. What was it like downtown? Were people social distancing? Were people
No,
wearing masks?
they weren't. Well, there were some people wearing masks, but they weren't social distancing.
Is there concern that this might cause a flare up again?
Well, I mean, I haven't heard much from our health officials here in Stark County about that, but around the state and other places, I have heard that they're concerned. I think one of the mayor, I don't know if it's the mayor of Atlanta, told people, you all better go get tested, man, but it's a virus. So, yeah.
Isn't it odd that like a week to 10 days ago, a person could get arrested for opening up their beauty shop?
Right.
But now, after all these chain of events, you have looting going on with no one getting arrested. It's been kind of crazy. Not here, thank goodness.
Amen.
But we're seeing it. How do we keep that from coming here? You guys are doing a great job.
Well, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. I mean, the police have been awesome as far as I'm concerned. They, had to, of course, work overtime, and but they're doing a good job, and they're human too, and they're tired too, and so my prayer is that this will end specifically here in Canton, Stark County, that this will end soon.
Yeah. You mentioned the mayor. He spoke to the group as well, didn't he?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And what was his message? That's very, very cool to have the mayor involved as well. What was his message to everyone?
Well, his message was basically, hey, we want to work together. We want to work with our police reform. We want to treat everybody equal. And, and we're all a part of this family called human beings. Mm-hmm. And it was a good message.
I know a lot of folks who feel very helpless right now, thinking, I really want to do something and have no idea what to do. What would you say what would you say to the white community who has not experienced the same kinds of things, as far as what we can do?
Well, I think that we need to pray, ask people to pray, and then if they just, I would say, if you find an event that's coming up, like a prayer event, a prayer community event, just show up. I think find something where you feel like you feel comfortable and just get involved with it.
I'm still, and I'm sure you are too, still a little discouraged that we still have something called a black church and a white church. There's a time we should all be together and worshiping together as one. It seems like during that hour of the week would be a good place to start. Your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I think that's part of the problem, because if you got those churches separate, they're not communicating with each other.
Yeah. I've told this story a million times, particularly this week, but I'm so grateful. When I was a little girl, very little, our church, and this was Central Presbyterian Church in Massillon, and they had Bible school with Friendship Baptist Church in Massillon. And actually, my Bible school teacher was Mrs. Lightfoot, who was Lori Lightfoot, who's now the mayor of Chicago. Her mom was my Bible school teacher.
All right.
And we became friends. The kids, we were little kids, and no one is born a racist.
Right.
And so here we were, just little kids, and I'm so happy that my parents were intentional about making sure that we had friends of all races and that we had friends of all different shades of skin. And I think it made an enormous difference in our lives growing up, in our family, and how cool of Mom and Dad back in the 50s and early 60s to be that proactive about it. But that was a pretty neat program. I'm not sure it still continues, but that's what we need to do, isn't it, Walt? To start having people get together. So, because once you know someone and you have a friendship, it's an entirely different story. Yes?
Right. Definitely.
As you work with young people, I know there are racists on both sides of the line.
Right.
How do you explain to a young black person that not all white people are the same?
Well, we just got to have that conversation. I think if we don't, then we have to be intentional in having those conversations with our youth.
Mm-hmm. Because I know there's that Karen thing where it's, do you know what I'm referring to? It's like there's a name that they give a certain woman that is a white, probably middle-aged, middle-class white woman that I would just consider just a gal. But that there's a name Karen, and then there is a stereotype there.
Right.
We need to break down stereotypes on both sides. Your opinion on that?
Oh, I agree 100%, definitely.
How do we start to do that?
Well, again, doing what you and I are doing, having a conversation.
Yeah.
It could be over a cup of coffee, breaking bread together, meeting together, praying together, going places and where we all are, and communicating.
Why are those conversations so hard? I know, even coming in today, I mean, I prayed because I didn't want to say anything offensive, and I
Well, because Dr. Martin Luther King said we don't come together because we fear each other.
Oh man! And some of it is you have so much respect for someone that you don't want to say anything that's going to be hurtful in any way. So there's a fear of that as well.
Right.
Well, I think we could all do well to read up on a lot of things that Dr. King said, and he was certainly a man ahead of his time. But where do we go from here, Walt?
Well, we got to keep doing what you're doing, talking about it, and then, putting some action behind our talk.
That's my next question. How do we go from talking about it to doing something about it?
Well, just what I said earlier, if we're going to start some coalitions, etc., we got to make sure that we stick with it.
Yes. There are some, I'm thinking, coming together, Stark County and some of these others. Do you think maybe people will pay more attention or be more deliberate and intentional in getting to some of those meetings? I know they're open to everyone.
Right. Yeah, I believe so. I believe some will. And then, maybe that's what we were saying is the other coalition that we were talking about. Maybe, there's room for more.
Right.
There's room for more.
It's not like we have too many.
Right.
Tell me more about your coalition. Is there a name, and is this something?
No, that one, no. This is what we're going to bring up probably at the meeting tomorrow with the mayor and the police chief.
And this specifically will be pastors?
It's predominantly pastors, but we will open it up to community people also.
Awesome. Anybody that's willing to pray, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's where this is going to start. We need to pray.
Yes.
Yep. Well, we certainly do appreciate you, your good work, your amazing testimony, and what an awesome job you're doing in this community. Thank you so much, Walter Moss.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.